What is good, everyone? Welcome to the last video of the year for accountability. This is going to be the last of another step in the kingdom economics process. And going into the new year, while I would put out another video, I'm going to wait for the second week of January, only because I'm going to be out of town on business. Not because I don't want to, but because it's business. Now, for those of you on YouTube, yes, I will be making sure that you do receive the content every single month, which is twice a month, these videos. And for those of you that are in Kingdom Economics, we're caught up. The reason why, for those of you on YouTube, excuse me, is one, I was dealing with loss of electricity for about a week, for mostly electricity. Second, I was sick last week. So all the reason why there was some reason of trying to prevent my accountability from producing this content, but still, as I got some tea, still, I'm going to be producing it as I am doing right now. Before we get into it, let's go ahead into prayer. Father, we come before you in the mighty name of Yeshua Mashiach, as you are great and greatly to be praised. We praise you for this time, so that way your will is being done in our lives, and we ensure that it is your will that expands kingdom economics, so others will learn of how your economics works. I ensure that there is no astral traffic or trading involved in this work being done, that we will not be checked or hindered by any outside forces, not establish sentinel angels at every dimensional access points, so that way we will have unhindered, free-flowing wisdom by your Ruach HaKodesh. Pray like all these things in your name. Yeshua HaMashiach, Elef Tav. All right, so those of you who are new to Kingdom Economics, it is about wealth built on biblical principles and spiritual alignment for one's identity in Yeshua. And I am not a tax advisor. I'm not a lawyer or an attorney. I'm not a financial advisor. This is purely educational information. So any specific information regarding those areas of expertise, contact your professionals, and they'll take care of that for you. So we are going to cover what we went over in the week, as well as the rest of the month. Well, the first one was on portfolio mandates and financial projections. Well, the portfolio mandate, we went over investment objective, risk tolerance and constraints, asset allocation guidelines, benchmark, investment restrictions, reporting and governance. And the example that I used here was first a balanced mandate. The objective was moderate growth and income. The allocation was 60% equities, 40% bonds. Benchmark was a 60-40 world blended index, and the constraints were no leverage, no emerging market debt. Excuse me. So, with the equity mandate, as an example, the objective was long-term capital appreciation. The sector was developed market equities only. Restrictions was no fossil fuels, tobacco, or pharmaceuticals. Benchmark was S&P 500 historical performance, and there was an absolute return mandate. Now, when we looked at financial projections, we see there are several areas that need focus that many people are just not aware of when it comes to business. And we're not getting into the full aspect of like how private equity does. But the basics of financial projection is revenue forecasts, cost of goods sold, could call it COGS, gross profit, operating expenses, EBITDA, which is gross profit minus your operating expenses, net income, cash flow projections, and break-even analysis. All right. These are areas that are absolutely crucial in order to have a healthy balance sheet for your business. The other is to have a healthy portfolio so that way your investments grow. Now, when we went into the next week, those of you on YouTube, we in Kingdom Economics went over relationships and culture. So with the relationships, we went over healthy boundaries, words aligning with actions, responsibility, clarified communication, that kind of thing. The culture side of things, we delved in a little more deeply because the relationship was touched on in the very first video that I did. But culture, I expanded on a little bit more. And I did a little bit more with the relationships, but with culture in Kingdom Economics, culture is the spiritual and relational environment that allows Shemaim's principles to manifest in real-world economics like business, finance, management, leadership, and community. The core cultural pillars of Kingdom Economics are honor, generosity, stewardship, trust and obedience, righteousness and justice, community and covenant relationship, creativity and innovation, and peace. So Kingdom Economics today requires a culture that reflects Shemaim. Now we also want to over how to build Kingdom Economics culture in an economic space or even economic spaces. Now, the signs of a healthy Kingdom Economics culture is something we also went into. And so the outcome where our culture aligns with Kingdom Economics, organizations, and communities becomes more fruitful, peaceful, innovative, just, resilient, generous, and impactful. Week 19, because that's how many weeks that we've been into it, was the previous week, which was on public image and governmental officials. Well, when it comes to the public image flows from identity. It's not the optics like what we see, because Shemaim establishes identity privately before it reveals authority publicly. Integrity is one of Shemaim's currencies, as favor flows and follows faithfulness, not just visibility. Wisdom governs how truth is displayed, and character precedes influence. So, can Shemaim trust you with visibility without you needing validation? Like, honestly, are you fine going through what you're going through, whether you have a large audience or not? When we talked about governmental officers, they do exist under heavenly jurisdiction, even when they don't acknowledge it. This is absolutely true. And you can see this in Daniel with King Nebuchadnezzar. All right. He was turned into a beast by God because, yes, he did rule all the kingdoms of the earth at the time. And he thought he was God of the universe. And because of the way spiritual realm works and how things operated in that sense of the time, yeah, sure, one would be able to believe themselves that they were God in that very presence, and that's authority, power. Well, God humbled him by creating him to be a beast, and then he changed him back into being his man, his self. Humbled himself, of course, but you saw how that kingdom turned out. However, that's one example to show you that even though he didn't recognize it, he recognized it after that event happened. Well, even with governmental officers, we have to understand jurisdiction before confrontation. If you are going into a jurisdiction you have no understanding of, not even any kind of knowledge, you will fall flat on your face before you even step foot in that jurisdiction. That's just how it is. But Shemaim moves governments through alignment, not manipulation. And so honor authority without worshiping it. Because there are many people, not just past, but present, and there will be future, that worships authority. The human benefactors. And so it's not about worshiping it, but honoring them. Big difference. And then lastly, the point that we covered in governmental officers was speak when Shemaim authorizes speech. Okay. It's not to say like you can't say whatever you want. All right, you can, but that's why in Proverbs it also speaks life and death is in the power of the tongue. So, because life and death is in the power of the tongue, you get to choose whatever you want to say. However, there are certain things that you cannot say yet, that only Shemaim authorizes, that God flows through you at specific times. Sometimes he does not want you to speak such things, because it's not the appointed time. Because there's certain things that are very powerful, that shift realities on a massive scale. And we're not talking about just a personal level between you and another individual, or you and a small group. That's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. That happens all the time. But certain things where it's on a larger scale, there are certain times that you cannot speak certain things until that point. However, like always, God provides us wisdom, as he has, and I will be using scripture afterwards. I just did not put my book markers this time in it. So it's all good. It's all good. But when it comes to God's wisdom, it always astounds me what new thing he's speaking of. Well, in this context, what he's speaking of is in the basis, yes, of accountability, but this is what he says. My children, you are faithful and just in times of difficulty. Accountability is a requirement in my kingdom. You cannot proceed without it, because if you do, the consequences are from the choices you make. I have government officials in place to operate what's done publicly, so you can live peaceable lives. Your image is my image, and it cannot be changed but improved. When others see me, they see you, just as you see me in creation. What you speak and do in private, will be revealed publicly, whether good or bad. My children, I want you to flow with the light I gave you so very long ago. It is who you are in me. Trust the process that I give you, for the plans I have for you can only align in your agreement. You must know the cost before you receive the reward, just as counting the cost to build a property. However, do not count alone to receive the reward and add in others who will come alongside what you do. The reward alone is not the destination, as it's an expression of who you are in me. The more of you receive rewards, the more of you are expressed exponentially. The resources and provision come from me and no other, unless your agreement is elsewhere. If that is such, come to my courts and relinquish the burdens you carry. So, when it comes to God's wisdom, it's not always fluffy, is it? No. And I don't always look for the fluffiness. I look for what helps us become more one with Him. Speaking of which, I declare in the name of Yeshua these scriptures, and I plead your blood, Yeshua, all over these scriptures that I'm going to read, such as Proverbs 27, verse 12, which says, "A prudent man foresees evil and hides himself. The simple pass on and are punished." And then we're going to skip over to Micah. Yes, good old book of Micah. There we go. Micah chapter 6, verse 8, which says, "He has shown you, O man, what is good. And what does the king require of you, but to do justly, to love mercy, and to walk humbly with your God?" Oh, it's kind of like, because my, it was a question mark at the end. So, And then we're going to flip over into the book of Romans. That's right, Romans chapter 13, verse 1. It says, "Let every soul be subject to the governing authorities, for there is no authority except from God, and the authorities that exist are appointed by God." And last but not least, we have 1 John chapter 4, verse 17. "Love has been perfected among us in this, that we may have boldness in the day of judgment, because as He is, so are we in this world." And I seal these scriptures in the blood of Yeshua. Again, and in every realm, age, timeline, dimension, frequency, vibration, sound, energy, planet, cosmos, constellation, universe, past, present, future, to infinity. All infinities of infinities and beyond, all eternities of eternities and beyond. All time those that exist, once existed, and could or could not exist. On all sides of creation, everything in between. In all multiverses, from the beginning across eternity. In Shemaim, in the heavens, on Haaretz, and under Haaretz. Aleph Tav. That is it, everyone, for the review of accountability. I have the hope that it is informative and inspiring to you all, that it builds more in you to have God's kingdom economics grow where you're at. So I will catch you all out a couple weeks from now.